Today we are talking about hunters on the newest patch and hunter builds, because at the moment Failnaught is super popular with everyone really, and the question is if that remains the case after this item has received some nerfs. Before we do that, something half related that I quickly have to point out. The newest Forced Windows update will enable your game mode by default, and the game mode is known to cause lags, especially if you use recording software or other software in the background. I was not aware that this is the case, and due to the resulting micro stutters and the delay, the footage in the background will be a little bit rough to watch. Sorry about that. It is fixed now for the future, but you will see me miss around 80% of my impales. So let's talk about the items. We already discussed Failnaught with the last patch because it was really a super overwhelming item stat-wise, and it was so good that it was basically advisable to build it on all hunters. I think that with the newest patch that will change. The change to Failnaught itself wasn't super drastic. There was an issue which had the buff applying to non-guard targets, which of course that being nerfed is also good, but the real change here was the crit chance being reduced from 25% to 20%. But a big issue with Failnaught was that it has very strong power stats and very strong crit chance stats at the same time, and then the cooldown reduction on top of that, plus the passive. So it was kind of a bit of everything, and just taking one of the core stats of the item that it is being built for still, the crit chance, down a notch should have an impact. For that one, we'll have to have a deep dive into the numbers. So last time I tested various different builds in regards to their performance against each other. Some of them including Failnaught, others including traditional items like Rage. And back then, these stats were heavily in favor of Failnaught when it was actually procced, when the passive effect was activated. And even when it was not activated, the DPS was only ever so slightly lower. Considering that you also have to stack Rage to really get the benefit of it, this was a clear win for Failnaught. Now things are a little bit different. So the first thing we're going to do is compare a Rage build and a Failnaught build again, but we're going to get to other crit items later as well. The build here is a Hunter's Blessing, Devourer's Gauntlet, Ninja Tabi, Rage or Failnaught, Executioner, Deathbringer build. Everything that can be stacked in both builds is fully stacked. With Rage we have an attack or in-hand damage of 291, the crit chance is 65% with the full stacks, the attack speed is 1.91 and the crit multiplier is 2.3. The total DPS with Rage is 1025, just as last time. With Failnaught on the other hand, we'll have 316 attack damage, we have 45% crit chance, and we have 60% crit chance after the ultimate. The attack speed is also 1.91 and the crit multiplier remains 2.3. The DPS here is now 957, so roughly a 70 DPS loss, which I wouldn't underestimate. The DPS after ulting, however, is still significantly higher, with 1074, so roughly 50 damage in favor of Failnaught. So less damage outside of the ult by roughly 70, more damage by roughly 50 during the ultimate, excluding the other benefits that Failnaught brings with it, and that I think still sells Failnaught over Rage overall. You still have the cooldown reduction, you have the additional damage for allies as well, and you have higher ability damage due to the higher attack damage or power as well. So yeah, I think this one is still in favor of Failnaught. But Rage is not the only item that we can build. In fact, another one was changed not too long ago by receiving a minor price drop, and that is Wind Demon. I think Wind Demon is very much an item to consider in this competition. First of all, let's look at the stats of an unprocced Wind Demon under the same circumstances. Same build, also Hachima level 20, just swapping out Failnaught or Rage for Wind Demon. The attack damage here is 301. The crit chance is 45% at all stages, and the attack speed when it's not procced is 2.01, with the crit multiplier due to Deathbringer still being 2.3. The DPS in this case is 959. That is 2 more than Failnaught has without its ult proc. Not super impressive in that regard, but also still not worse at least. However, the comparison is much more fair if we use the proc version, because we're using the proc version of Failnaught as well, and one is proc through critting once, which is pretty likely with this crit chance. The other one is proc through using your ultimate, which is also likely because you can control it, but it's not going to happen quite as often. In this case, Wind Demon still has 301 in-hand damage and still the same 45% crit chance too, but the attack speed goes up to 2.21. The damage multiplier remains at 2.34 crit, and the DPS is now 1054. This is 20 less than Failnaught, which in my opinion is not all that noticeable, and it's a lot easier to consistently keep this effect going as well. We have to take this comparison a little bit deeper though. Before we do that, a quick reminder, if you enjoyed the video so far, feel free to click the like button, it really helps my channel out. Now what sets Failnaught and Wind Demon apart? With Failnaught, you get the additional damage by teammates as well, the additional crit chance rather, which I think is a bit more of a gimmick, but it can be nice depending on what comp you're playing in. You also get 20% cooldown reduction, which I think is a strong stat to have still. And last but not least, you also get a little bit more power for abilities, though that is not a drastic amount here. What you have to keep in mind with Wind Demon on the other hand is that you get extra movement speed, which is a very valuable stat, especially now that many items don't have as much of it anymore. So that benefit should not be underestimated both for chasing and for getting away really. And not only that, more attack speed also means you're firing more shots, which makes it easier for players that have a harder time aiming with hunters, so I personally enjoy Wind Demon in that regard a lot. And then we also have to consider power curves and price curves. Wind Demon is 300 gold cheaper, which makes it more accessible and furthers your build quicker, so that is definitely a benefit that's definitely worth keeping in mind. That probably offsets the 20 DPS loss by far. Wind Demon also most definitely comes with the better tier 1, which is also way cheaper and has better stats, and arguably with a better tier 2. That depends more on which hunter you're playing. If you're playing Ulla, then Failnaught's tier 2 is probably better, but if you're playing a more traditional hunter, then I would say the tier 2 of Wind Demon is better. And we should look into exactly these curves even deeper, so we're going to look at Hachi in an earlier stage of the game and also in a later stage of the game than what we've compared so far. The earlier stage is level 15, Hunter's Blessing and Devourer's Gauntlet fully stacked, Ninja Tabi, and then your crit item of choice, either Failnaught, like it's built by most at the moment, or Wind Demon. At this point with Failnaught we have 234 in-hand damage, 20% crit chance, 35 crit chance with the ultimate being used, 1.6 attack speed and a 2.0 multiplier for crit. That results in 449 DPS when your ult is not active and 505 DPS when your ult is active. With Wind Demon not being procced, we have 219 in-hand damage and 0.2% crit chance, or 20% rather, 1.7 attack speed and 2.0 multiplier for crit. That results in 447 DPS, so basically the same as Failnaught when it's not procced. When Wind Demon is procced, the attack speed goes up to 1.9 and the DPS goes up to 499. 6 DPS difference, really not that relevant. Even at this point, it seems to be a lot more about the hunter. If you make more use of a little bit more cooldown reduction and a little bit more power at this point of the game, then Failnaught will offer more overall because DPS is not that important. If your hunter is one that is going towards late game anyways and is more focused on getting there quickly, like say Ram for example, or guards that have specific on-hit effects that they can apply with more attack speed more frequently, then it looks much better for Wind Demon here. So what do the numbers say for very late game? I did the same build that we did initially, but with Malice included instead of Hunter's Blessing. So Malice, Devils, Ninja Tabi, Wind Demon or Failnaught, Executioner and Deathbringer. Malice is being used here because it's typically the other item that adds most damage. You could also use Titan's Bane in certain situations, or you could use other items. That's not the point, it's just about having a fair comparison between the two. I'm going to skip over the detailed stats here. If you want to look at them, you can do that. They're shown here. But the outcome is that with the Failnaught build, we'll have 1096 DPS. And when the ultimate is activated, or the passive is activated rather, then we have 1208 DPS. On the other hand, when it's not procced, with Wind Demon, we have 1105 DPS. And when it's procced, we have 1224 DPS. So what you can see here is that adding a high power and crit item helps out the Wind Demon build, because you actually get more chances to proc Wind Demon in the first place, and it's way more likely to keep this effect up for a lasting fight than it is to have the effect of the Failnaught going for a full fight. Usually it's just for one target. So in many situations Wind Demon will simply have the higher DPS at this point. Wind Demon build will also favor certain other options if you don't want to go into Malice, like for example Qin's Sais, as it does more with it due to the higher attack speed, and then you could, for example, trade out your boots for Titan's Bane or something like that. But we are still not done because we're still excluding the strongest option of them all. And that is Devourer's Gauntlet, Ninja Tabai, Fail Not, Executioner, Wind Demon, and Deathbringer. So both of these items in one build. I just did the calculation for the version where Wind Demon is procced here because I don't want to calculate two separate procs. And in this case, the DPS from only Wind Demon procced but Fail Not being procced is 1201. And both being procced is 1328, so another 100 on top of the Wind Demon Malice option. But that brings us to a bit of a complication, because now we have to decide which item we're going to build first. Is it a Fail Not rush or a Wind Demon rush that we're after? And this is very important from the perspective of many games not reaching the point where you have 3 crit items in the first place. And then you also have to decide what your second crit item is going to be, if you want Deathbringer first or if you want a second one of the other two that you haven't built yet. I think last patch this decision was kind of cookie cutter. You were pretty much always better off getting Fail Not because it just fits better with the power curve and you're gonna be the lane bully and everything. Now I think it is a lot more about which guard you're playing. If you're playing a guard that makes very good use of Fail Not, either due to utilizing CDR very well, so basically ability-based kind of hunter that just kind of can fit in Fail Not, then Fail Not is definitely the better option. And if you're playing a guard that has very good overall usage of Fail Not's passive with the ultimate, that's also a good option. I would say, for example, a guard like Hachiman should probably still build Fail Not first in most situations. If, on the other hand, you're building a guard that doesn't benefit that much from CDR and gets more out of a bit more sustained DPS, then I would point more towards Wind Demon here. But even that doesn't necessarily make the decision easy, because then you have to factor in that attack speed steroids can also kind of skew this DPS in either direction, but it can also make you, for example, proc Wind Demon more options, so that's something worth keeping in mind. And you also have to keep in mind that even some guards that don't necessarily have the best DPS improvements with one or the other can make use of certain other aspects. So for example, even though I wouldn't call Xbalanque an ability-based guard, I think the cooldown reduction can be very strong on him due to the fact that his ultimate is so powerful for the entire team. So at the end of the day, it's really a decision that's down to your preferred playstyle and what you want to achieve in that particular game. That's not to say that you'll always have to build this build path. Certain very ability-focused guards can most definitely go into the Fail Not and Malice combo still. Even though it lowers your DPS slightly, the chance to have your abilities more often can be very useful for some, especially those that have the interaction with their steroids, where the steroids immediately go off cooldown and can then be reduced in their cooldown through Malice. Last but not least, especially when behind, it's also worth keeping in mind that Wind Demon has a lower price point, so that's something that should go into the decision too. So lots and lots and lots of things to consider, and I really think it's a per game choice. I really think it's a situational choice every single time, but I do think that Wind Demon and Fail Not will now directly compete for this slot. That said, I don't think Fail Not is fully balanced just yet. I would like to see a nerf to it to a smaller extent, maybe take away some of the cooldown reduction of the item or make it slightly more expensive, because then it will be much more in competition with other crit items as well. Right now it's maybe more that Wind Demon is also actually pretty good, more so than the item itself being completely balanced yet. We'll see what happens in the future, but now we have plenty of room to try out new things in your games. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this was interesting, insightful. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. See you for the next one tomorrow. Duke Sloth, out.